And that would include the teams on the bye, the Falcons, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Saints. So for you fantasy guys out there, from what I understand, that's important information to know so you can get your fantasy act together. But there you go. Those are the teams that are on the bye. Any thing to say about these bye teams?
I mean, guys that have been kind of living off of the Saints defense or Bijan Robinson, who plays for the Falcons. There's not too much going on here. This isn't too brutal of a week for most fantasy guys. There's not a bunch of must start players, as we call them, in this group of teams.
Yeah, like I think last week you were talking about must start players.
Oh, last week was brutal.
Yeah. So a little bit different. Yeah, and you're right. When I look across the Saints, the Colts, the Saints probably have the most, wouldn't you say?
A lot of people have been playing the Saints defense.
Yeah.
And Chris Olave.
Oh, yeah. Chris Olave.
And Kamara.
Yeah. I'm a Kamara fan. And I always told you he reminds me of, what's the name that's with the Browns? The backup running back with the Browns.
Kareem Hunt?
Yeah. They remind me of each other. All right, next up, Bengals at Ravens. This is the first game. The Ravens have a bias plus score of 16.4 in their favor over the Bengals. Bengals just came off of a loss, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I get started, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams this past weekend won games with last-minute drives and time-expiring field goals. The Bengals have to go to Baltimore and play the Ravens this upcoming weekend. Both teams played very well offensively in their games last week, but both teams somehow snatched defeat from the jaws of victory when their opponents were able to put together last-minute drives and kicked last-second field goals. So both these teams were victim to one of those 5 teams, whose names I didn't mention, but you'll hear them as we go along. First off, Cincinnati on a 4-game win streak hosted the Houston Texans. Joe Burrow's been playing really well, and he did so again in this game. He threw for 347 yards. Real nice day. 2 touchdowns, but unfortunately, he tossed 2 interceptions, and he threw them in the fourth quarter, and both of them killed drives. Even still, Bengals cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt intercepted C.J. Stroud, and with 3:18 left, Joe Mixon scored on a 1-yard run. The defense held. They forced a punt, but Tyler Boyd on the next possession for the Cincinnati Bengals dropped a pass in the end zone, and the Bengals had to settle for a field goal, which, a touchdown would have put them ahead. The field goal ended up tying the game at 27. With 1:33 left, C.J. Stroud engineered one last drive for the Texans and the game-winning field goal, winning the game 30-27. So the 4-game win streak by the Bengals went by the wayside to the Houston Texans. Now, as far as the Ravens are concerned, they opened up their scoring in their game against the Browns when safety Kyle Hamilton intercepted Deshaun Watson 40 seconds into the game. It was the first drive, and ran it back for a pick 6. Undrafted rookie Keaton Mitchell, who I mentioned to you last week. Yes, another Mitchell, Keaton Mitchell, that a lot of people grabbed up on his first touch of the game, went 39 yards for a score, making the score 14-0. Somehow, some way, though, strangely, later in the game, he was on the sideline. I can't figure out why. I know they love Gus Edwards, but this guy, Keaton Mitchell, is something special right now. Let me see. 5 minutes of the game. Yes, 5 minutes had gone by. Keaton Mitchell scores, and they run back an interception. Now, Lamar Jackson threw for 223 yards. He hit Odell Beckham with a 40-yard touchdown pass and run. It was a long run. He hit him down the middle. It was a nice run for Odell. He hasn't been doing a whole lot, but that was a good catch and score for him. That happened in the third quarter. That extended the Ravens' lead to 24-9. Kareem Hunt then scored on a 3-yard run for the Browns after a 75-yard drive. But after some back and forth and a few penalties, the Ravens scored again on a Gus Edwards run, making the score 31-17. And here's where it got crazy. After that, the wheels kind of fell off for the Ravens. A touchdown pass by Watson, a pick six, and a game-winning field goal with no time left on the clock sealed the Ravens' fate 33-31. Really, two really bad losses for two really good teams. One that's been pretty much running the division, the AFC North, being the Ravens. The other, the Bengals, who got off to a slow start, but they really, really have been coming on strong and looking really hot. Now the Bengals have to go into the Ravens kind of licking their wounds. I'm going to take the Ravens at home in this game. I think the Bengals surely will play hard because they can't afford to lose. If they lose another game, they could seal their fate for the playoffs. But so I expect this to be a really good game. This actually would be an intriguing game candidate. Something for you to think about. But I'm going to pick the Ravens to win this one.
Very interesting matchup here. You're absolutely right in terms of being an intriguing possibility. Both of them, looking pretty good. I was surprised that the Ravens lost that game, to be quite honest with you. I was on that Lamar ship that looked like it was like sailing. It didn't look like anything was going to stop it. The defense was handling their business. Lamar looked good. So, you're going to go with the Ravens. You're going to go with the Ravens here over
Going with the bias.
Going with the bias. Okay, let's see what we got next.